Hey guys, this is John. I'm playing Carbide in the 5-minute pool on ICC. Hope everyone's having a super Tuesday. And let's open with d4 against Carbide. I'm thinking about playing a Trompowsky with bishop g5. It's an opening I haven't played with white on my channel yet, so let's give it a shot. And we're actually doing the Pseudo-Trompowsky against d5. You can also, of course, play the Trompowsky proper against knight f6, but this is a way of playing as well. This line's pretty good for black if they pop the queen out to b6. So he plays bishop f5, makes sense. I can try to play c4 maybe, but my bishop's always hanging out here on this square, so I think I should prefer development. Let's just play knight f3. And the reason why I mentioned queen b6 is because that would hit the b pawn and enable black to seamlessly play e6 if they like. So yeah, black goes ahead and does this. Knight d7. Maybe I can take the opportunity to play c4. Let's do this. Seems like these systems where white is avoiding the queen's gambit are increasingly popular, like bishop f4 on move 2, the London, stuff like that. The Kali systems like those are coming into the limelight in modern chess. So I'm happy that I got my knight to c3. I could foresee in the future maybe being able to play c5, attack this queen, force black back a little bit. That would be nice. And Carbide is starting to think a bit, so that's helpful. I know from the black side I've often played like h6, bishop h4, and then bishop e7, just seeking a trade of the dark square bishops. He plays knight f6, logical. Let's just develop bishop e2. Getting ready to castle. And again, I would like to crawl forward with c5 and gain a tempo. If black plays knight e4, I might play c5 immediately. And then if queen c7, my idea would be bishop f4. So for now, let's just castle as planned. I'm anticipating that black will castle as well. If knight e4 now, I could take, and black's king would be stranded in the center. Okay, so c5, they'd probably be forced to go back to d8, so this might be a good moment to play this move. Let's do it. And they do go back to d8. And should we just continue firing away on the queen side? b4. All right. So black plays h6. So if I go bishop f4, probably knight h5 will be their reply. So let's play bishop h4 instead. And immediately black plays a6. They're anticipating my moves. All right, let's go ahead and continue a4. Now they're clipping along. Okay, so I could take here. Probably they'll take with the bishop if I do that. So I'm thinking about playing queen b2 and maybe being a little savvier. Although if I play queen b2, I could see why they might take on c3 and then look to play e5 very soon. Although I think I like my queen here positioned on this diagonal because that will frustrate their attempt to play e5. Like if they play e5 now, I can take on e4 and then take on e5 thereafter with my knight. And I want my rooks connected, and I'd like to push b5. b5 is the pawn break we'd really like to achieve. Just attack both a6 and c6. So yeah, clear sign that black is prepping for this advance. b5 looks well timed though. Should I take e4 first? Nah, let's not distract ourselves when there's a goal at hand. Let's just do it. It's so weird he's playing instantly. I mean, I guess they're pre-moves, but they are coming very, very quickly. Even more quickly than I would think. Okay, so e5. Now, do we take and then play the queen into b7? That would drop the knight on c3, so let's not do that. I could play b6 and go for a squeeze. I'm kind of thinking like that's what I should do. But maybe first I should play something a little prophylactic. Is black really threatening anything? I guess they're threatening to take d4 and then take on c3 thereafter. So that's what they're up to. So maybe take e4 myself. Knight h4 also comes to mind. Knight h4, bishop back. I'm trying to use the light square somehow. But you know what? I think I'm just going to take here. Bet they'll take with the bishop, because taking with the pawn, I can go knight d2 and maybe get my knight up to c4 eventually. Although there could be something to be said for d takes e4, knight d2, e takes d4, e takes d4, e3. And they are going to try that. Okay, so knight d2, take d4, take d4, e3. I could play knight c4 there, however. I'm liking the look of that. Anything else I could throw in here? I could throw in a check on c4. Nah, let's do this immediately. Yeah, and here I also have queen check on b3, I'm just noticing now. So that's probably the way I should go. And then go and pick up that pawn. I didn't notice that until right before black played e3. I thought about bishop c4 check. I mean, way back when black played f6, actually, something in my head kind of kicked in and said, hey, maybe there's a weakness on this diagonal of some sort. So, all right, so which way to take on e3? Conceivably, I could take either way. Might not be that big of a deal. I'm going to take with a pawn. Just because it stabilizes my chain, it also opens up the attack on the bishop. So what's not to like? All right. They can try to plunk this bishop on d5, but let's just play the queen over for now. Maybe to c2. Yeah, let's go to c2. Pre-move this capture. So they're fighting for control over e4. Bishop f3. Pressure that pawn. Let's do it. Gotta watch my time. They've got about a minute advantage on the clock. Play bishop d5 now. Yeah, good timing on that, I think. Okay, well, let's take and then play knight here and try to maneuver. We've got the 2 versus 1 on the queen side, C and B versus B. d5 is potentially weak. Yes, they have a strong hold on e4, but if this knight tries to jump into that square, I'm going to get knight e5 in myself. So, all right, they're looking to liquidate. Thinking about just bringing this back over. Get behind this pawn. And if they run with the queen somewhere, maybe queen e2 and double up on the e file next. Yeah, let's do this. They could play rook a8 and try to give me a check down on a1. But I think even just g3 there would be fine. Okay, let's bring this in. With tempo, I also get knight e5 with tempo, but there are some checks here I got to be wary of. I'm going to go here. Again, I got to hustle a little bit just due to the time. b7 is hanging as well. I would like to take that if I could. Would also like to not allow them so much counterplay as I'm currently doing. Knight e4, I'm not sure how I would respond to that, to be quite honest. That's not a move I'd like to see here, I'll tell you that. It severs the coordination between my queen and my rook, and it opens up their rook. I might play queen e3. Okay, so they're just going to do this. Knight e5. Yeah, let's try it. If they give a check, I'm going to h2 with my king. Try to gang up on g7. I'm also hitting the knight here. They can maybe play rook down, but then at the very least I could check and then trade the queens. So let's play for the attack on g7 now. Hard to defend for black. I mean, they might have to play something radical like g5. But then I'm getting knight f7 in at the very least. They might be unraveling here. If rook g8, I can take on f4. So I'm not seeing what black is going to do. Yeah, they come all the way back. Let's do this move. Yeah, that looks clean. If we get a trade, we can take on f4 at the end. I think knight f7 check was also good. That would have won the exchange and the game most likely. But this is going to work out pretty handily. If the rook moves away, we also take f4. Okay, let's just take there. Okay, just push. Push the c-pawn next. No stalemate tricks. No stalemate tricks. Mate next move. All right, so we get the job done. Possibly a little shaky. I think black had better right here. For one thing, after rook e7, I was more concerned about queen h5 in the limited time I had to analyze this position. Point being that I can't play knight e5 because my queen would hang on e2. Although actually I could play knight g6 check there. Knight e5, queen h5, queen takes e2, knight g6 check, king h7, and then I take on f8 with check and then win the queen. So maybe that would have worked out. Certainly, though, after h3, knight h5, knight e5, queen check, this was looking slightly precarious. But maybe even here, I mentioned the move knight e4 as being one that I was not looking forward to seeing, because that would disrupt my queen and my rook, and it brings the rook to bear down on the f-file. It's just a move that throws off my coordination pretty significantly. So I'm just going to flick on the engine right here and see. Okay, the engine says white is rocking. Rook b8 is incredibly passive. Very few humans would want to play rook b8 here as black. We'll take a look at it when we get to this stage, I suppose. I thought the opening went pretty well. So bishop g5. Now, this is my opinion, but I think bishop g5 on move 2 is better against knight f6. So this is the Trompowsky proper. d4, d5, bishop g5 is the so-called Pseudo-Trompowsky. Because here you actually have a positional threat of doubling black's pawns. Whereas with the game continuation, your bishop is somewhat floating out there. I mean, white's hope in this line is that the bishop proves to be a disruptive force. And, you know, if black plays knight f6, we can take it. It prevents the pawn from coming up to e6 for now. But it's not one-way traffic in that sense. Like, this piece is a potential target. So black played c6. I just played e3. And as I described, bringing the queen out to b6 is nice for black because they win a tempo and then they can push the e-pawn without any fear of losing their queen. Maybe here it's slightly better before knight d7 to play this move. Because that way I was thinking if c4, then black may be able to bring the bishop to b4 with a quick check and have it be more disruptive. In the game, after knight d7, c4, e6, I'm in time to cover this diagonal with knight c3. Black could play bishop b4, but it wouldn't be with check. Whereas it just crossed my mind that maybe in the case of this line, I could see bishop takes b1, rook takes b1, and then here, check, or maybe even queen a5 going after the a2 pawn. Could be something for black. As played, however, I think both sides could be happy with the position. I mean, white's space advantage should count for something here, but then again, black hasn't done anything egregiously bad. It's a slight shame for them that after c5 they have to go back to d8, because in the event of queen c7 I could play bishop f4 with tempo, but no biggie. I mean, let's just see the evaluation right here. Yeah, small edge for white, roughly a quarter pawn. I think that's what you'd expect in this position. So I started bringing my queenside pawns forward. I'm not sure black should even bother playing a6 here. Because the thing about a6 is it just makes my eventual pawn break with a4 and b5 that much more violent and destructive when I'm attacking two pawns rather than one. So given that white is going to achieve a4, b5 regardless, I question whether black should even do that. They might just want to operate with this one hook on c6 versus two hooks, a6, c6. The engine wants to do this and try to hunt down this dark square bishop. Yeah, that's a valid strategy, even though black does weaken their king somewhat. Maybe that's why a couple moves back I saw that the engine was liking h3 right around here, so that my bishop, if necessary, could go into this h2 cubbyhole as a retreat measure. But I would say the way the game played out was pretty straightforward for both sides. Black traded the dark square bishops. This move is a little iffy to me even still. I remember describing at the time I wasn't sure exactly how to play it. My fear with queen b2 is that I might just lose a tempo if black takes on c3, but I felt like I needed my rooks connected. Maybe I could have played it better somewhere leading up here. Knight takes e4 is the recommendation. That way I suppose if this, I'm jumping into d6, and I have a strong knight attacking that pawn on b7. And also I can eliminate this bishop next if I want. So and if pawn takes here, then we're inserting this trade and then going knight d2 and maneuvering for c4. That does look good. And also, if bishop takes, I guess bishop g3, preserving the bishop from capture. And black does not have a knight on h5 that could go harass it. If they were to play knight f6, I can play h3, and yeah, now knight h5, bishop h2. So it looks to me like what the engine is saying is that my best chances for an advantage right here are connected with making sure this bishop can be preserved. So that is a worthwhile thing to remember. Like this h3 move could be valuable. It crossed my mind. I was just focused on getting in a4 and b5. So black could have played that g5, knight h5 idea. As played, it should be fine. I kind of question whether f6 is a good way to prepare e5 because it weakens this diagonal, and it also weakens some squares on the king side as well, like g6, and the queen is no longer looking at the h4 square. So I think if they want to prepare e5 as a counter break to my pawn activity on the queen side, rook fe8 would be a better way to do it. Not as weakening. So I continued pushing. Now the computer greatly prefers white's position. Plus 1 point something, huh? Let's just follow this line. Knight h4, bishop h7, take. Let's say bishop takes. Rook takes, take. Am I going to go queen b7 at the very end of this line? Yeah, come in and attack the rook and the pawn. Just like that, nice and direct. Okay. What if rook a2, hitting the bishop here? Bishop g4, pin on the knight on d7. And despite black's active-looking pieces, white is the one who's having all the fun, it appears. Okay, yeah, that's a nice line. So this capture and then the queen coming in could be a valuable motif. Suppose I could even do it right away, right? Oh, but there's this issue of the knight hanging. Yeah. So I'd have to resolve that first if I wanted to. Like even a line like this comes to mind. Take. And if bishop takes, queen coming in, again is good. Rook a2, and wow, check out this move. This time, bishop b5. No bishop g4 available, but fear not, bishop b5 is there. The point this time is that if takes, there's c6. Again with the pin. It's a pretty cool move. And that's a unique way to double attack the c6 pawn as well. Fun stuff. So I just took and then played the knight back to d2. I was surprised that they took with the pawn, but maybe they foresaw this idea of me just trading and playing my queen into b7. It's possible. So then black played this e3 move, and as I was saying, I didn't see the refutation of this at the time, but the deficiency looks to be that they're allowing this check, and I can just pick up the pawn. Here I took with a pawn. Not sure if that's best. Maybe queen takes is slightly better, just offering a queen trade. Bishop c2 would be kind of a funky move here. Point being that if I take, queen takes e3 check and they're on the bishop, and rook f2 is impossible because black takes here. But I guess the thing about bishop c2 is I don't have to take the bishop and I can just play queen c3. So after this, I'm nursing this pawn advantage. Again, probably not playing strictly the best moves, but good enough moves. I'm +2 roughly, meaning that not only do I have an extra pawn, but the engine thinks my position is very good as well. Okay, and here I had c6, and this was just game over had I played it. I suppose the idea is to drive the knight away and then jump in knight e5, whereupon knight g6 will be crushing. Yeah, because black has 3 pieces in forking distance should a knight land on g6. And let's say after this trade, they got to move the knight. And when you have 3 pieces in forking distance and only 1 move to respond with, 2 of those remaining pieces are going to get forked. So it doesn't matter if black moves the king, I'm still forking with knight g6. If it was only like the king and the rook, or the queen and the rook that were getting forked, then obviously black could move one of them away and knight g6 would only be attacking the remaining piece. But here, there's going to be a double attack no matter what, at least. So we traded, and things got a little hairy. Like I said, I wouldn't have liked to repeat this, especially had black played knight e4. I don't know why I was thinking this was so dangerous. The engine's like, whatever, just grab the pawn. But it seemed kind of nasty to allow this. Now black's threatening check and maybe bringing the queen into g3. Yeah, the engine just completely dismisses this. It says queen f1, cover a1, you coward. And black has nothing. Even rook a2 is probably nothing. Knight e5. Yeah, I'm always going to have counterplay with check and maybe knight f7 coming. So interesting, the difference in our human perceptions versus what the cold, heartless, ever-seeing engine says. Yeah, I mean, a human would be a little concerned here in time pressure as white, as I was, but it's over, and it has been for a while, according to the computer. I'll just check these remaining moves. Here I'm +9. I'm attacking g7. Yeah, queen back. And here I speculated that I think both rook f7 and knight f7 check were good. I played this one, just severing the coordination between the rook and the knight. But this was also sufficient. Yeah, if takes, it's too much material. Yeah, and I won a piece in the game. So not a perfect game, but I was able to nurse that extra pawn to victory. And you can see the competing pawn breaks here. This is characteristic for this pawn structure. Black playing for e5, whereas white's going for this b5 break. And I think the mini game, the meta game that breaks out around those two breaks is important to understand if you play these structures for either side. I think for white, this move h3 is one that you have to pay attention to. And I kind of thought about that in the game, but never really paused to fully consider the ramifications of black trying to hunt down my dark square bishop, as they might have done in this line with a4, g5, bishop g3, knight h5. So, food for thought. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this game, and I'll be back again soon with another video. Talk to you later. Bye.